This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by top trainer Dominic Ingle. I say delighted, but the circumstances could be a lot better after the Bradley Skeete result on Saturday night. We'll get to the kind of controversial elements of it, but just up until kind of round 7, were you at all surprised by how dominant Bradley was, by how easy he was making it look?
No, not at all, because like I said in the press conferences, that when you're seeing him sparring the likes of Kell Brook, Liam Williams, Willie Hutchinson, David Avanesian, when you're seeing him sparring with those guys and giving a good account of himself, taking the shots, big shots, and, you know, boxing his way through, he's always had that ability to box. But I think people just probably thought, well, he's 34 now. He's had 2 years out. He's not going to be the same kid. He's only had a tick-over fight. And, you know, well, sparring is different to fighting. But, yeah, sparring is different to fighting. But there are some fighters who spar exactly like they fight. Liam Williams is one and Bradley Skeete's another. And what you see in sparring is how they perform in the fight. Kell Brook, you know, doesn't spar like he fights. His spars aren't particularly good, but he fights well. So when you've been watching this and the experience I've had over the years, and then watching Sheeraz in his fights and who he's fighting and what he's doing, then the only deciding factor in this fight was Bradley Skeete going to be able to execute the plan all the way through the fight? And he was. And the only thing what turned the fight around was the illegal blows he got hit with on the floor. And when he went down, it wasn't like he was in mid-action of throwing those shots. You can allow for at least one, but not, I think it was 3 in the end. Steve Gray was actually stood looking at Bradley on the floor while he was getting hit. Now, how many fights have you seen when two fighters are exchanging, a fighter gets caught and he's more or less out on his feet and the referee actually jumps in between the fighters to stop the fighter taking any more blows? It puts himself, you know, John Curl was one between Tyson and whoever he boxed, it might have been up in Glasgow. Put himself in the mix and he got hit. Well, Steve Gray was almost, you know, like a rabbit in the headlights, as if saying, what do I do? He was stood, just watching. He never tried to intervene and protect the fighter. You have to question that. And it's blatant. You look at Edwards, Charlie Edwards, when he got hit with one body shot on the floor. Yeah. The fight was, you know, whatever it was, I don't know, it was a no contest or he got to keep the belt or whatever it was, the guy was disqualified. This was shots to the head. And he went from a kneeling position to a laying down position because he got hit clean with 2 unanswered shots, 2 to 3 unanswered shots. So there should be not even a decision to be made. It's like, that's done because it's illegal what he's done. If you get hit low, they give you up to 5 minutes to recover. Steve Gray never said to Bradley Skeete, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. All he said to Bradley Skeete, according to Bradley Skeete, was, if you don't get up, I'm going to have to stop the fight. You've kind of abandoned the fight. So, you know, what kind of advice is that? He shouldn't be getting penalised for the one who's taken the illegal blows. And he's 34 years old. Hamzah is 22. Right. So let's look at it from this perspective. He's got plenty of time at 22 years old to adjust his game and come back from that. If he's going to do it, he's going to be the kid that they're all making him out to be. He can do that. But Bradley Skeete is 34 years old. He's not going to get more opportunities. So it's not about letting, well, you know, he's on the end of his career and he's coming through. Well, if he can't cut the mustard, if he can't perform like he's supposed to, Hamzah Sheeraz, then realistically, they shouldn't be pushing him forward as the next big thing. Because on that performance, would you say he's the next big thing?
No, but I think
in the 154-pound division, has he done anything in that fight? He did not anything different in that fight to the fights he won. He boxed exactly the same way in the fights he won, but he delivered more shots, but didn't do anything different. And all he did was followed Bradley Skeete around the ring, trying to hit him with single shots. He had no game plan, really, there was no boxing ability. It was all actually, when it came down to it, is really on brute force. And he hasn't really got a lot of that because when he did hit Bradley in the fight with clean shots, he didn't really have that much of effect.
Yeah, let me ask you, though, because obviously that was the definitive moment in the fight with the illegal blows. But he did land the shots initially to drop him. How confident are you that wouldn't have been a fight changer on its own?
Because what was it? The 9th round? Was it? What round did he get dropped?
8th.
And then he got up. Right. So he got dropped in the 8th.
And got hit on the floor.
And that's when it stopped.
Yeah.
Right. So he got two more rounds.
No, he got stopped in the 9th.
He was a 9th.
But
so
the 8th was the illegal punches, wasn't
it? Yeah, probably.
Because he came back to the corner in between.
Yeah, he did. But the point is that, you know, he got caught with that shot, but he got caught earlier in the fight. Hamzah threw a shot, Bradley dipped, and the shot hit him around the back of the head. Then Hamzah pushed him down.
Right.
So, but he got caught with single bigger shots once or twice in the fight, and rode them quite well. And to be honest, the first shot they put him down before the illegal blows. He did the same thing again. He kind of dipped, and Hamzah kind of hit him on the top of the back of the head, which he couldn't, he couldn't alter that because of the way that Bradley was dipping. But it was all right. All he had to do then, he was well in front on the cards. He'd come back to the round. I said to him, listen, tonight, all you got to do for these next 2 rounds is run. And he would have won the fight. But he got into that situation where he was obviously subdued. He got caught and he went into fight mode. That's what you do. It's a natural instinct. Just like, people saying to me, oh, he should have stayed down. He should have done this. It wasn't guaranteed if he'd have stayed on the floor that Steve Gray would have said, yeah, you're disqualified, Hamzah. You can't guarantee that because it doesn't happen. How many times have you actually seen a British referee disqualify somebody? Realistically, when was the last time? Very, very rarely.
Yeah, it's very rare.
But if it had been the other way around, 100% Bradley Skeete would have got disqualified. And they said this should happen in boxing. A lot's riding on this Hamzah Sheeraz, but why are they pushing kids through who can't cut it? If you can't cut it in boxing, you can't cut it. That's it. You've got to readjust and go back to the drawing board. It's not good people giving you a free ride through, because eventually when you get to an higher level, all you're going to do is get slaughtered. So if he can't get through on his own merit, then realistically, he shouldn't be boxing and he shouldn't be happy with that decision. Afterwards I said, well done. But that's just good sportsmanship.
Sure.
The referee, he did what he had to do, Hamzah Sheeraz, did what he had to do. But the referee let him do it. Understand? Let him do it. So he wouldn't have got to the stoppage if the referee disqualified him, because he wouldn't have gone out for the next round. And that's what has to happen. But they're too scared. And there will be a complaint going in. There's no way, there's plenty, it's well documented. It's down on tape or whatever. You can repeat it. It was blatant. And if anybody says that didn't change the course of the fight, then of course it did. Of course it did. There's rules for a reason. Do you understand? What's more damaging, getting it low or getting hit 3 shots to the head unanswered? More damaging getting hit in the head.
Of course.
So there should be no answer, but there should be no grey area. It should just be that's what it is.
So I watched it live. I watched it slow motion replays on the night. I've watched it this morning again. Now, from my point of view, it looks like he brushes in with the first left hook as he's still falling, and then hits him with a clean right hand and a hard left hook while he's on the floor. So 2 clear illegal blows, potentially 3, but it looks like he's not quite hit the floor when he hits him with the first of the 3. What has Bradley told you about the force of those last 2 punches, particularly the left hook, which looked really damaging?
Well, the thing is, obviously he said he never really hurt me in the fight, but I wasn't expecting that. I couldn't brace myself for them shots. I've been in a lot of fights and I've had people on the floor or whatever, and I know the position you are told, once a fighter hits the floor, do not land another shot.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Hamzah, as a boxer, doesn't know that Bradley's on the floor. And regardless of your instinct, you might. How many times have you seen top-level fighters, Golovkin, all these fighters, when the fighter's injured, they just step back?
Or when the bell rings at the end of a round as well, same thing. You see them go to cock their arm and then back off.
They stop, yeah. So that one you could very, 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 if it was in mid-floor, but it wasn't. It was on the floor. And there's no accounting for that. You can't do that. There's rules for a reason.
What do you blame for that then? Is it kind of over exuberance, or are we saying that he's a dirty fighter and he did it to gain an advantage, or are we saying he got over eager?
At the end of the day, he probably hit Bradley with more clean shots on the floor than he hit him in any round in the fight. He probably never landed 2 clean shots on Bradley in the fight. in any round of the fight. He might have done, but Bradley was either rolling from them, slipping them, or whatever. But none of the shots, be honest, Danny, none of the shots in the fight really troubled Bradley at all. And being 12 years older, it does have an effect when you're older and some young kids coming at you and hitting you. Your resistance is less. But it did have no effect because, you know, Bradley, I think it was sheer frustration that Hamzah finally got him in a position where he could hit him, and everything went out the window. He just thought, I've got to nail this kid because he's making a fool out of me. Really, I'm not even hitting him, and that's what it looked like. It actually looked like Hamzah was clueless, and that's the top and bottom of it. So why, you know, why are people putting the trust and belief in this kid is going to go to the top? Because he's not going to go to the top on that performance. He's not. You might as well have had a fair fight. Bradley Skeete deserves it more. He's been in the game a long time. He outboxed the kid. He outperformed him. And, you know, for all those rounds. So realistically, and he even came out for the 9th. Now, he really should have took my advice and just moved him and got out. But once you get caught, you get into that fighting mode. As a fighter, sometimes that's what you do. You get drawn into it. And that's the only time, really, that Hamzah had success, when Bradley stood and traded with him, because really his legs were gone, you know, from the effect of getting hit on the floor.
So Skeete's been hit on the floor. Steve Gray belatedly has sent Hamzah Sheeraz to a neutral corner. He's talking to Bradley at that point. You've told us what Bradley said that Steve has said to him. What are you shouting across to Bradley at this point? And could he hear you, do you think?
Well, this is the thing. I could see Bradley Skeete. Now, you know, I'm vocal in the corner. I've been thrown out of the ring. I've been fined for misconduct. And I'm telling Bradley Skeete to stay down if he doesn't feel recovered, to stay down. You're being hit illegally. And I'm actually shouting to the referee, all you can do is disqualify that fighter. And what Steve Gray did, you probably won't be able to see it on TV, he moved in front of Bradley Skeete to block his view from me, and then kind of put his own hand out and told me to be quiet. So I'm trying to coach Bradley Skeete, which I'm in my rights to do, and say, you stay down. But then you've got Steve Gray blocking him off and saying to me, if you don't stand up, according to Bradley Skeete, I'm going to have to stop the fight. Bradley's thinking, what do I do? Whichever way it happens, if I get up, I'm probably going to get beat. If I stay down, I'm going to lose. So what's his option really? Is
Steve Gray saying, and this is all obviously from Bradley, but is he saying, I'm going to have to stop the fight as in I'll stop you? Or is he saying the fight comes to an end? So is there a possibility he would have disqualified Sheeraz?
He can only be talking about stopping Bradley Skeete, because he didn't say, I'm going to have to stop Hamzah or you're going to. He should really have just should not have said anything to him. He didn't have to say anything to him, realistically. Now, I was actually in two minds about walking from my corner to that corner and saying to Bradley Skeete, do not listen to the referee. You stay down. You've been it illegally. But you know what will happen? Because it's happened before. I'll get pulled in front of the board. They've got a rule. Anything they consider misconduct. I've been on it a few times. I've been fined £1,000 for it, for talking to the referee. So the best process is to let it all pan out, let it go as it does, and then put a complaint into the board, because there's no way in a million years can they not uphold a complaint to make that a no contest. Regardless of what they do to Steve. Regardless of what they do to Steve, they do with Steve Gray. The point is, he broke the rule. The referee didn't protect the fighter when he was on the floor. That is misconduct by the referee, really. Do you understand? No, that's what it is. The referee failed to do his job. And he allowed that fighter, it could be said that I allowed the fighter to carry on. But I'm not going to stop that fight, because I know, because if I stop the fight stopped. There's no complaint going in.
Well, that's the thing, he'll lose. He'll lose if you stop the fight, whereas Steve Gray could have stopped the fight and disqualified Sheeraz. There was two options, whereas you only had one.
Exactly. And that's the situation. That's the situation. The fans, look, the fans want to see proper boxing. All this does is discourages fans. They just think, well, what's the point? If it's a foregone conclusion, he's the favourite. They don't give this kid a chance. What's the point? That's the whole idea of sport, that there's competition, that there's something that people can keep on the edge of the seats. It'd have been different if Sheeraz had hit Bradley. You know, if he'd have caught him, it was a good enough shot, and he was confident it was a good enough shot, he could have stood back, waited, let him stand up and do it properly. But he knows he would not have hit Bradley Skeete because he had already done that in the fight, hit him with clean shots and had no effect. So he's not going to catch up with Bradley Skeete. He hasn't caught him up in 8 rounds, more or less. He's not going to catch him up in the next 2. Because it's not like he was getting any faster, any quicker, landing any more shots. He was trying to put more pressure on, but the more pressure he put on, the less success he had. Is that a fair enough assumption?
Yeah.
Yeah, he never did in that fight. It never looked at any point whether Hamzah Sheeraz were going to win that fight. It never did. It wasn't that close. It's not like Bradley was getting beat up or it was a close fight with 1 or 2 rounds in it. He was getting totally outclassed.
So when Bradley came back to the corner at the end of round 8, shortly after those illegal blows, did you say to him, you should have stayed down, or why didn't you stay down?
There's no point. There's no point saying that to him because that's just going to confuse it. All I said to him is, you've got to move around this ring. Do not get into a fight with this kid. You've got to move. He'll be putting the pressure on for a minute and a half, then he'll start to fade. You've got to get through. Do not get drawn into a fight.
But the thing is, a fight. Did he seem like he was taking it on board?
You don't listen. You can't tell because fighters, you know, they can be who knows. But he was acknowledging it. But whether it's going in or whatever it is, it's a different thing. If you've never been hit in the face, you don't know that position. It's like being drunk. Oh yeah, you can be talking away, and then kids can be having full conversations, but the next day they can't remember a thing they've been done when they've drunk. So, but then he got clipped and he started getting into fight mode because he's like, I'm gonna have to fight. It's survival here. I've got to fight. And his legs were stiffened up because he'd obviously took the shots on the floor. So, you know, that's how it panned out.
And he took that big right hand, I think, in round 9, but was allowed to carry on, and then complained a little bit about the stoppage itself as well. How did you feel about that part of it? I know we're saying it's because of the illegal blows anyway, but how did you feel about the stoppage itself? Do you feel he could have gone on?
Well, maybe he could have gone on, but this is what you have to realise. Steve Gray has already allowed this kid to hit Bradley Skeete on the floor. Yeah. You understand? Now, if he allows Bradley to get then he's being dropped and he gives him a count and then he waves him off. If he then would have allowed Bradley to continue, more of a disadvantage, and Hamzah Sheeraz had hit him and leveled him and sent him out on a stretcher, that makes the case even worse.
Much worse, yeah.
Much worse. So you cannot allow that. So he had no option but to do that. He had no option. That's the only option he couldn't, because he put himself into that position. If the knockdown where the illegal blows were, the legal blows hadn't have happened and he got up, and he would have let him carry on and let him get finished properly in the next knockdown in the next round. But he would have been called into question because he's already done something wrong. He's allowed a fighter to take illegal blows on the floor, and then to allow him to carry on. People say, well, why, you know, that it would have been more of a kick up. He would have left himself more in a vulnerable position, Steve Gray, because he has left himself in that position now. He's left himself in a position, and it's not the first time it's happened with him, and it's not just him. It happens with a lot of referees making wrong decisions. You can be allowed for maybe 1 or 2 wrong decisions in a year. But as a referee, the experience he's had, the time he's been around, he should know. It's
well,
not
he had
like,
a lot of time
now
to make the decision as well. That's the thing. He didn't have to make it in a split second because Bradley was on the floor. He was being allowed time. He had a lot of time, Gray, to think about what to do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is whenever that situation, look, I've said this before, you've seen fights when referees have stuck between fighters and put themselves in the firing line to stop any more blows hitting the injured party. So he didn't have to do that because he didn't have to get between them. All they had to do, you know, he could have done. He should have, once he was on the floor, he should have stepped in front of Sheeraz and made sure no more blows could have gone down. But he didn't. He almost stood looking. So you have to ask yourself, what was that all about? Did he allow Hamzah to do that, or was he not in control of the situation? Because I've been in lots and lots and lots of fights when that's happened, when the referee has got between the fighters to stop at the end of a round when blows are still being exchanged, to get in and stop them from hitting each other. I've seen it loads of times. So it really, you know, it was incompetence at the end of the day. He's not an inexperienced, he's a star A referee. He's a story referee. He knows what he's doing. So he's judged it wrong, whichever way he's done it.
Let's talk about after the fight. We'll take them in turn. Was many words exchanged between you and Sheeraz and his corner?
He came into the changing room and I said, well, you've won the fight. I asked him what his weight was getting into the ring. And that was it. And I in the past, I have been vocal and said, you're a cheat. You've done this, but there's no point. It is what it is. The decision's been made. Nothing what I say to that fighter now. I'm not going to say to him, you're a dirty fighter. There's no point.
But he didn't bring it up.
No, I didn't bring anything up. But the thing is, I'm not going to, what's the point? It's not going to change the decision. There's no point in me having to go in at that kid. That kid, Hamzah, is a fighter. Right. And with fighters, you go until you're told to stop. Right. What they do conscientiously then in a fight is down to them. If they're prepared to hit somebody on the floor or hit them more, or dirty tactics or headbutt people, that's their choice. And no matter what I say, it's not going to change that. The referee, right, he fouled. The referee had the choice to turn around and stop that fight. And then Bradley wouldn't have got stopped. Then there'd have been no conversation. If it was accidental or whatever it is, regardless of the accidentality of it all, is he not only once, you could possibly make an excuse if he was mid-firing it, cocking it back, but he wasn't. He wasn't. So there's no matter whichever way you try to dress it up or whitewash over it, there's absolutely no way you can justify. Nobody can justify and allow for that. It can't be justified for. It can't be. Not with the rules and the regulations of boxing. And if it does, then it's just making a mockery of the sport. It is. That's what it is. The top and bottom of it is that. And if I had a fighter who did what Hamzah did and got disqualified, imagine then if I'd have started jumping around saying, I wouldn't jump around and go, you shouldn't have disqualified him. I'd have gone to my fighter, you hit him on the floor. What do you expect? That's what the rules are. I won't be, I should never admit what you're disqualifying him for. So that's the game. We all know the rules of the game.
Any conversation with Frank Warren after the fight?
I very rarely talk to Frank. I mean, I said at the press conference, and I keep reiterating this. I said, I've been in this position many times where we're the underdog going up against a prospect. Andrew Face against Matt Macklin. He was on a flyer. The only people who've beat him is Gennady Golovkin and Sergio Martinez. And then you've got Andrew Facey on his record. So we've been in this position before where we've had the underdog fights. I'm a boxing trainer. And I've seen over the last 30 years, fighters, these prospects coming through, building them up. But I knew when I watched Hamzah, he's not been in with anybody. Nobody gave him a test. Nobody could box. They just, they were there to get knocked over, really. And in the fight, he really was clueless. He came in with a tight guard. He's got height and reach, but never really used it to his advantage. He never used it to his advantage. So, I knew Bradley, as long as Bradley could stick to the plan and his legs held up, I knew he would outbox him because he hadn't lost that boxing ability. So, that's where we're at. It's I didn't speak to Frank Warren, but we spoke to his office this morning and they're saying, they'll have the rematch because how can he move on from that fight, really? It should be made a no contest. Whether the board will do that or not is another thing, but they should make it a no contest and say, and because you don't have to have a rematch. The board can't order a rematch.
No.
The WBO could. Yeah, the WBO could, and that's also there's going to be a complaint going into the WBO as well. And if he doesn't take the rematch, then they'll take the belt off him. So we will send all the information. We've already got the solicitor working on it now, putting the case together. So, and they've said, Frank Warren's office has said, a spokesman from Frank's office said, yeah, we'll fight him again. And that's all in the aftermath of it and while it's all still flared up. In a couple of weeks' time, this will have gone, there'll be another controversy somewhere and this will be forgot about, but we will keep it going. And you've only got to look at the response on social media, Europe and all these things. It's a trending topic, but it's a hot topic at the minute because people want to see the underdog win. The one who's put up against it, if they put in a great performance, they want to see a fair fight. He's been a good servant to the game. He's put his time in. He deserves a bit of respect and fairness, not penalising because he's older and not supposed to win. You shouldn't be penalising him for that. You should be going on his performance. That's what you should be doing.
Any conversation at all after the fight with either Steve Gray or Robert Smith, who was there?
No, because like I say, any kind of conversation with referees, I'm well known for it. All I'll do is I'll just get myself into trouble. That's it. It's no good me going up and, putting on the referee or, having a go at him because he's made his decision. What's going to change? All it's going to be is that when it comes up in a hearing, that will be used that I approach the referee. You approached the referee and you had threatening behaviour. You said this or you said that.
It's concerning that the referee didn't feel the need to explain himself to you and to Bradley.
Well, to be honest, my corner man called Lukoc, who does the corner, he had a conversation with him in breakfast the next day. And I'm not going to say what that conversation was, but it's going to be a case of he said this or he didn't say this. But when we make the complaint, that conversation will be put into the complaint. Do you understand? And let's just say Steve Gray was having reservations about what he'd done, but that's too late then. And if it comes up in a meeting, he might deny that. But it was clearly said. So we will see. But the information will go into the complaint. And even without that, even without all this hearsay, it doesn't alter the fight. It wasn't it with one illegal blow. It was definitely two and maybe three. So that's all that's all that, it's like the difference between murder and manslaughter, isn't it? At the end of the day, somebody's died, but it's both wrong, whichever way they've done it. You're still going to prison. And it's same when you hit somebody on the floor. It's not like, well, whether it was accident, whatever, it's disqualification. That's what it is. It's black and white. There's no grey area. He wasn't falling. He got his hand on the floor. 3 parts of his body were touching the floor. That's it. Don't hit the guy. He's on the floor, defenseless. Do not hit the guy. And there's no, we shouldn't be having this discussion. There should not even be a discussion. It should be just clean cut.
I agree.
If I didn't put a complaint in, and I've got to put a complaint in, would the board deem fit to actually have an investigation and call that referee in and have the... No, they probably wouldn't do, no, because nobody was complaining. But really, they should do because they've got to keep their house in order, haven't they? They've not got a problem when they're dishing out fines and dishing out disciplinaries. It works both ways. Officials aren't above the rules and regulations. They're not. We're all license holders, and we're all subject to the rules and regulations of the Board of Control. I mean, I've suffered in the past for causing problems, having a go at referees. A number of times I've been thrown out of the ring, numerous occasions away from the arena. I've been fined probably more than £6,000 or £7,000 in my boxing career for misconduct. And they have a rule. There's another rule in the board. I can't remember which one. It's something like 12A, and anything they seem fit to pull you in for, so they can even make their own rules up with it. So you haven't really got a leg to stand on. And same with my dad, Brendan. He was flung out and fined loads of times because you see what the referees are doing. They're giving a slight advantage to the home fighter.
Well, at least this wasn't buried away on a small hall somewhere with no TV. It's been seen by the eyes of the world. And
what amazes me is when BT show, reruns of it and put on what a fantastic display and all, devastating power or whatever. They kind of just glossed over the fact, that there's nothing illegal about
because I guess from their point of view, anything they say, it's like can and will be used in evidence because that will support the case against the board, won't it?
But all they're doing is broadcasting a fight, and realistically, that's probably caused more interest than it would if Bradley Skeete had won the fight.
Yeah.
So it don't matter. You can't what. So if we don't report it never happened. Is that what you do? We pretend it didn't happen. Then that's what boxing's about. You don't just you don't just gloss over it and pretend it didn't happen and it was a fantastic win. You've got to at least mention that there was some controversy about it, but he finished the fight by stopping Bradley.
At least they left it in the fight highlights.
Sorry?
I said at least they left it in the fight highlights.
Yeah, well, YouTube. Don't be surprised if that disappears. But
I was surprised it was still there this morning, to be honest. But it is still there.
You can't censor it. You can't censor it that much, can you? You can't censor what didn't happen. You can't pretend it didn't happen. So it did happen. And the thing is, Bradley Skeete has been a high-level professional, British, Commonwealth, European. It's not like he's just some kid coming through. And realistically, that WBO belt, it's not, the British champion at light middleweight is who?
Light middle is Troy Williamson.
Troy Williamson. Right. Troy Williamson is an handful. He can bang, he can fight. That's the WBO European title. Troy Williamson is a young kid. What would he do getting in the ring with Hamzah Sheeraz?
What if they Troy or Bradley?
Yeah, no, Troy with Hamzah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd fancy Troy in that one.
Yeah, 100%. You put your money on him.
Yeah.
So let's face it. Realistically, Hamzah's not even British title level, is he?
As it stands, based on Saturday's performance, no.
No, he's not. So why didn't he go down the route of being a British champion instead of a WBO European title?
Well, I think that's one of the ways.
Because it's an easier no, Danny, because it's an easier option.
It's kind of it is a typical Frank Warren route, though, isn't it? Like when Bradley was with Frank, he had the WBO European at welterweight.
I don't actually, did they? Because I don't.
Yeah.
With that belt around at that time.
Yeah, he had it. Liam Smith had it.
Right, so he went intercontinental or international.
Bradley's was definitely European because they announced it in the pre-fight
announcement. But whatever it is.
No, I mean it is an easier route, but it's also a Frank Warren.
But he still won.
Route
But
well.
Yeah, all right. But he still won the British title, Bradley, didn't he? And you have to be in the. You have to be somewhere in the ratings. To win the British title, and you have to fight somebody who's in the ratings. You have to fight somebody who's at least worthy of that. But when you box for these international or whatever, Bradley Skeete, how did Bradley Skeete? Bradley Skeete didn't get into the WBO European ratings by his last fight, a 4-round win in Sheffield, did he? No, he qualified for it because he looked like he could be beat. That's it. Well, you can't. Bradley Skeete couldn't have got into a British title fight on his last performance, could he?
Probably not. No.
He might have on merit.
Yeah, well, that's it. The board might have considered his previous accomplishments.
Right. So not only did Hamzah have it stacked in the favour that Bradley was washed up past his best, not boxed for 2 years. He'd been boxing on a regular basis. He was younger. He was a prospect. They were building him up. All well and good, but realistically, he didn't pull the trigger, did he? He's not what people are making out to be. And if he's not, what is the point of giving him a false sense that he's going to be? You have to get where you're getting boxing on merit, not by somebody swerving you through the maze of boxing. You got to beat the kids who are, it's not even that Bradley wasn't even probably in the top 10. So it's an easy, on paper, it's an easy enough win. But it wasn't, was it? Because they're the type of fights where if you actually know boxing and you take all the hype out of it and you go on past experiences and past performances, all right, Bradley didn't box great when he got beat in his fight for the European, whatever. But he's still got that boxing ability. And Hamzah hasn't got that boxing ability. So, why are we penalising Bradley Skeete?
Do you take any positives from Bradley's performance, if not the result?
Yeah, of course, we take the positive is that he was winning the fight. He was outboxing a younger guy. He had a smarter boxing brain. He had a better variety of shots. He had a better game plan. He had all these things. And that's the positive we're taking out, that he hasn't lost his time. He hasn't lost his resilience. He hasn't lost his chin. He can still take a shot. But I knew all this because I've seen him in the gym, sparring. So, Mikey McKinson came, I think that's what they call him, came to spar him, good kid. And, Bradley had a good spar with him. When you can see him sparring these younger kids and controlling them, 6 to 8 rounds, not running out of gas, getting his shots off, his timing's perfect. David Avanesian, less than 2 weeks before his last fight, he was on fire. He came to the gym trying to rip Bradley's head off. And Bradley just, we lost connection there.
No,
Bradley just, controlled him and boxed. Didn't get involved, didn't have a punch up with him. So when that's what he can do under pressure, he's going to deal with the people like Hamzah Sheeraz, because Sheeraz is not on that level as these guys, as Liam Williams and Liam Williams, Kell Brook, David Avanesian. He's not on the same level. So when you see him sparring, and they're not going steady with him. Bradley's frustrating when he's sparring you. He torments you, and the only way you're going to actually slow him down is try to outbox him or land a big shot on him. So, and I've seen it firsthand. Kell Brook got out after a sparring and said, "Flumming egg, he's an handful after all this time." You know what I mean? I needed that. I needed that to switch me on. I needed that to smarten me up. He went hitting me up, but I just couldn't hit him. He was just throwing every shot. So, Bradley's got it. So what we're taking from that is that Bradley Skeete still has what it takes to at least get to another British title fight, and give him a bit of credit.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Well, let's see what happens. I guess this story is ongoing. So we'll have to
Well,
catch up
listen,
again.
one thing's for sure is there's a complaint going into the border control and there's a complaint going into the WBO. And that's the top and bottom of it. And we'll see where that goes. And apparently there's a rematch on the table, according to Frank Warren's office. That's been said this morning. So we'll see which pays off. You know, we've got to put the complaint in. If the requirement is that we don't put a complaint in and they'll give us a rematch, well, we're not going to go down that route. We're going to put the complaint in and we're going to try and get that made in no contest. Then they've got no option but to take the fight again. And maybe Hamzah will readjust. Maybe he has got the beating of Bradley Skeete, but I don't see how he's going to adjust anytime soon to be able to do what, to beat Bradley Skeete. It doesn't matter whether he ups the gas or whatever he does, because he was one paced. He can't really do anything different. What can he do different? He's not done anything different in his previous fights. He's just hit kids. Like I said in the interviews, every kid he's boxed, they've lost, but they've lost by stoppages as well. So they know they can be hit and hurt. Different boxing kids who've lost to tough quality opposition and never been stopped. That's a difference. But they've all had a chink in their armour. If I'm as a boxing trainer, I look at somebody with stoppages on the record, I think, yeah, that kid can be stopped. He has been stopped.
Yeah.
I was asked when Kell Brook boxed Sean Porter what I thought. And I told everybody that Kell would win on points. And people saying to me, but why don't you think Sean Porter's going to stop him? Why don't you think Kell Brook's going to stop him? I said, because they've both been in good fights. They've boxed for a long time and they've never been stopped. So the chances are it's not going to happen in this fight. And that's how you have to work out boxing. So, Sheeraz has had unfed opponents, really. Even with Bradley Skeete was an unfed opponent and he didn't perform.
There you go. Let's see what happens. We'll get back in touch in the next week or two and see how the complaints are dealt with.
That's it.
Appreciate your time. And I hope Bradley's bearing up well. I sent him a text yesterday, so I hope he's doing well.
He's back up to Sheffield at the end of this week. He's going to carry on training. The next fight he wants is that fight with Sheeraz. He's going to keep going.
Great stuff. Well, that's good to hear. Dom, really appreciate it. And we'll speak again soon.
No problem.
Cheers, mate. Take care.